Hey everybody, happy Grilling Tuesday and welcome back. Today we're making smoked pork carnitas on the Pit Boss pellet smoker. It's a delicious recipe, not too hard to do. Let me kind of show you what you need here. Obviously you need pork. We're going to use a pork shoulder with a bone in. I want to show you how we get this prepped because we're not going to do this like a smoked butt. We're actually going to cut it up, remove the bone before we cook it. So a good bone-in pork shoulder, or Boston butt as it's called. We're going to make our own rub for that meat as well. And we're going to need salt, pepper, garlic, paprika, cumin, and also a little bit of oregano. That's going to be our rub that we're going to put on this carved meat. After it goes in the smoker for a while, we're going to take it out. We're going to put it in a little tin tray. And in that tin tray, we're going to have some onions, about 8 cloves of garlic, a couple of bay leaves, and some stock. You can use vegetable, chicken, beef, whatever kind of stock you want, it would be fine. We're going to start with making the rub, just because I don't want my hands to be all wet from working on the pork while I start working on the dry ingredients. So pretty easy. I like doing things that are easy to measure. I have a 1/4 cup measuring cup and I have a tablespoon measuring scoop. So we're going to start with a tablespoon of garlic, a tablespoon of cumin, and a tablespoon of oregano. Real simple. And like most of these things, this does not have to be exact, so we got about a tablespoon there. For my cumin, I'm going to open it up so I can actually pour this stuff right in here. This is going to help with that good carnita flavor. So cumin, or comino if you're getting it at a Hispanic market. And then this is an oddball ingredient, but it really helps it out. We're going to do some oregano in here, a tablespoon of that as well. At this point, we're going to go ahead and do a 1/4 cup of salt, a 1/4 cup of pepper, and a 1/2 cup of smoked paprika. So again, that's why I just do it with a single measuring cup. I'm going to do a 1/4 cup of the salt. I've got a fan going over here, so I'm going to be careful I don't blow powdered pepper all over the place. I'll be sneezing through the whole video. 1/4 cup of pepper. This is just ground black pepper. And a 1/2 cup of the smoked paprika. And I have a feeling I'm going to use the rest of this, so let's just go ahead and get this ready to go. That's 1/4 cup. Oh, right at it. Now the paprika is going to help with color and flavor. It'll make it delicious. So let's go ahead and just get this mixed up. It's as simple as I'm just going to use my tablespoon mixing spoon there and get this mixed up real good. And this is what we're going to rub and sprinkle all over every side of the pork pieces that we're going to prep here in just a second. All right, we'll set this aside and let's start prepping the pork. Now you can decide how big of a pork roast you want to use. The beauty of this is it was on sale for $1.99, so this is a 6.5 pound Boston butt, or pork roast, a pork shoulder, as they call it. You're definitely going to want a sharp knife for this because we're going to try removing the bone from this, which isn't always the easiest thing to do when it's raw. I don't have a great knife, so I'm actually going to use a fillet knife. I think this will help. I don't have a boning knife here, and I wasn't going to go get one just for this. But I probably should have one. All right, so there we have it. We have our bone. This is what, when you do a Boston butt or a pork butt, that you slide out, right? That's always that sign that it was done really well, if that just slides out real easy. We're just going to set that aside for a minute. And I'm now going to trim up a little bit of this back. I don't want to take too much of it off, but I want to get it a little bit cleaned up, just a little bit. So now what we want to do is we want to cut this into, I don't know, let's say 10 to 14 ounce chunks, if you will. And ideally we want to get them, in a chunk about like that, right? A nice sized chunk, fairly even thickness. If you have a couple of pieces that have fallen apart, just leave them here. As we trim this up, we'll take these and roll them up and form it into another small piece, if you will. So there we go. We have our meat cut up, and we're now going to just go ahead and season it with that rub we had. The best way to do this is sprinkle it on. There's not a great way to do it without getting messy. So I'm going to just sprinkle it all on the tops of these right here on the cutting board, which isn't probably the best way to do it. Then I'm going to carry this kind of through here out to the smoker, but that's all right. We'll clean up as we go. All right, so we've got a nice layer on there. I'm now, though, going to actually hold each one of these over the top of this, really covered up. I want all sides of this covered and seasoned. That one looks good. So let me go ahead and just get this cleaned up a little bit. I'm going to clean up my hands, and then we're going to go ahead and get this on the smoker at 250 degrees uncovered. We're going to put it on the top rack. So let's go get the smoker fired up. By the way, I always open the grate so I can see the fire pot. I want to make sure I know what's happening down below there. All right, so we've got it powered on, and we're just going to go ahead on our smoke setting, let this run for a few minutes, and then we're going to do this at 250 degrees. Oh, and I'm using applewood pellets because it's pork. I kind of like applewood. You could use competition blend or anything else. I probably wouldn't use mesquite. That may be a little too overpowering, and it might take on more of a Texas barbecue flavor as opposed to a good Mexican carnitas. All right, we've got our pork canitas out here, and we're now just going to go ahead and place them in the grill on the top shelf. There we go. We've got these all on the top shelf. We're going to go ahead and close this lid. We're going to go 3 hours. We're going to go 3 hours at 250 degrees. We'll probably come check them in about 2 hours. And what we want to do is see a little bit of a bark on it. We're not trying to get like a brisket kind of bark, but we want them to dry a little bit on the outside because that second half is going to be phenomenal. That's where all the flavor and tenderness is going to come in. Our carnitas have been on now for a little over 2 hours. I just checked them, turned them over. They look really good. They're starting to get a little bit of a crust on them. I'm going to take them and I'm going to put them in a little tin tray here with 2 chopped up onions, 8 cloves of garlic, and 9 bay leaves. We're going to set those down on the bottom of this. We're going to set the pork on top of the onions, and then we're going to pour the vegetable stock on top of all of that. So let's go ahead and get the onions and the garlic chopped up. I'm not going to put the stock in yet. What I'm going to do with this is I'm going to lay my pork pieces, my carnitas, on the top of all of these onions. All right, let's get this carried out back, and we'll get these carnitas in this package. All right, as you can see, we have our onions, bay leaves, and garlic mixture right here. Just going to spread this out nice and even. Make sure we've got good coverage of everything. And let's go ahead and get our carnitas put right in here. All right, as you can see, we have our onions, bay leaves, and garlic mixture right here. Just going to spread this out nice and even. Make sure we've got good coverage of everything. And let's go ahead and get our carnitas put right in here. And again, all we want to do is sort of place these right inside of here. No particular order or way. Just want to stack them in there. And I'm just going to add this till I get a nice layer down in the bottom. Don't want to cover them. I don't want them to boil. So I think right about there's probably about an inch or so in the bottom of that. And if you can see it, it's not quite covering the onions. So when those onions cook down, these things will be sitting right on the bed of those. So I'm gonna get some foil, we'll wrap this up, and we'll put it up here on the top tray. Seal this up, pop it right on here. So with these back in here, covered up, we're gonna go ahead and cook them for 2 more hours at 250 degrees until they're good and tender. I think 2.5 hours should do it, but we're gonna come out and test them in about 1:30 to 1:45, and I'll show you a great way with the tongs to test them out. We're just gonna squeeze them and see if that pork begins to fall apart. So these guys have been on for about 2 more hours. I'll show you this little trick for seeing how well they're done. Let me zoom in here. And what you wanna do to test the doneness of this, we're just gonna pick one of these up. We're gonna give it a squeeze, and what we wanna see, these guys just falling apart. It's not quite there yet, is it? All right, let's go ahead and get this guy opened up, and we're gonna slide our tray forward a little bit so we have better access to this. Now let's just go ahead and open this up. Again, be careful, there's steam in there and you don't want to burn yourself with it. It's definitely gonna be hot. Show you this piece. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my tongs and I just wanna squeeze that. And if that does exactly that, just falls apart, that is ready and looks terrific. Look at that. Let's go ahead and pull this off and I'll show you another one. And I'll show you what I meant about this way to tell if these things are done. I'm just gonna go ahead and pick up this piece here and look at that. If you squeeze it and it does that, that is just perfect carnitas. And you got this delicious gravy with onions down there. Oh, phenomenal. Well, that's it, folks. Delicious carnitas. Started with a nice bone-in pork butt. We trimmed the bone out of it. We cut them into fist size or so pieces of pork, and then we coated each one with our own seasoning. And it was just a 1/4 cup of salt, 1/4 cup of pepper, 1/2 cup of smoked paprika, a little bit of a tablespoon of garlic, a tablespoon of cumin or comino, and also a tablespoon of oregano. Covered all the meat with that, and we cooked it uncovered on the grill at 250 degrees for 3 hours. At the end of that 3 hours, we lined the bottom of a tin pan with 2 medium to large onions sliced up and spread out, about 9 bay leaves, about 8 cloves of garlic. We laid all of our carnita chunks of pork right on top of that. Covered it with covered the onions. We didn't want the actual meat to boil, so we only put a little bit of the stock in the bottom. I use vegetable stock. You can use whatever stock you have. And then we put the pork on top of the onions, poured that stock in, covered it up, and we cooked it for another 3 hours. So check it, 2.5 to 3 ought to do it, and you know it's ready when the largest pieces in there just fall apart when you put your tongs on it. So let's give this a shot. Oh man. That is good. It's amazing. It really is a different flavor than you would get from a Boston butt or your average pork butt that you would smoke. Just phenomenal. You got to try this recipe. I'll put the description to the recipe down below, and we'll see you guys next week. Happy and safe grilling. See you Tuesday.